Hey guys, welcome to Lebo Man Reviews. Take a moment to like this video if you like it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And for those of you who have stuck around over the last couple of years as my life has gotten really crazy, first of all, I want to thank you for sticking around. Thank you for your support. Uh, I kind of told this story when I relaunched a channel a couple of months ago, and I really haven't been very active, only done a few reviews, but life has just been really crazy. On top of everything, we had the pandemic. So as I've settled into a new place to live, settled in with my family, settled into a new career, I just honestly didn't have the motivation to watch videos and do reviews, but things are starting to settle. I've been here at my new position for almost a year now, coming up here in a couple of weeks, and I'm really getting the motivation to watch films and talk about them again. I am taking a slightly different approach. If you watched the last three I've done, because I'm a pastor, I'm approaching these things from a theological viewpoint when it lends itself to that. And I'm kind of rethinking the kind of movies I want to watch because a lot of the people in my congregation may see these things. So I'm trying to let this be an extension of what I do as a pastor, but still be entertaining and still talk about movies. And I couldn't think of a better movie to jump back into this than Fatherhood. It's a brand new movie just released on Netflix. It stars Kevin Hart, Alfre, Woodard, Frankie Faison, Lil Ray Howery, DeWanda Wise, Anthony Carrigan, Melody Hurd, and Paul Reiser. And it's the story of this new father who is struggling to raise his daughter after his wife dies suddenly. It was directed by Paul Weitz from a screenplay that he and Dana Stevens wrote. And it's based on a book by Matthew Loughlin, who's the main character in the film. And the book was called Two Kisses for Maddie, a memoir of loss and love. And it came out in 2011. And the story is pretty simple. Maddie and his wife, Liz, are expecting a baby. And the baby is delivered by emergency C-section 7 weeks earlier because she's breeching. There's just some issues. So the baby's delivered, and then 27 hours later, Liz dies from a pulmonary embolism. And Matt is left on his own to raise this child, and his friends don't believe he can do it. His mother-in-law, Marion, played by Alfre Woodard, definitely doesn't believe he can do it. And at times, he doesn't think he can do it as well. The actual Matt Loughlin consulted with the directors and writers to make sure that this film was legitimate. There are obviously some changes to the actual story. First one being is Kevin Hart is African American and Matt wasn't. The time frame that the movie is set is somewhat different. They do keep some of the same names. They keep some of the same background information, like where they were from in the high school. But there are some characters that are changed, characters that are renamed, characters that are probably created, because that's typically standard for these types of films. But they went through great detail, especially consulting the guy who actually went through this. He actually says that the movie captured really intense emotions that were true to what really happened, especially the scene where he has to tell his wife's parents that she's died. There are a lot of interesting things that take place. This young guy trying to figure out how he's going to raise this little girl by himself and having to improvise. He changes diapers in some really weird places and has to do feedings on the go, and they're funny. But Loughlin, the real Loughlin, actually says that they remain true to this, and a lot of these things really, really happen. And once again, knowing Kevin Hart for what I know him from, the stand-up comedy, which can tend to be a little bit raunchy, and the big blockbuster silly movies, the Jumanjis, it's really interesting and kind of refreshing to see him in a role where he's taken seriously. He still jokes, and the movie still has a lot of humor, even though it's a really dark topic. This single guy who's ill-equipped to raise this little girl, and on top of that, having to struggle with losing his daughter, and really the people in his life, while trying to help him out, don't have a lot of confidence in him, especially his mother-in-law. And that's one area, if you read some interviews, where it really deviates from the true story. The real Matt says that his real mother-in-law, Candy, was actually absolutely wonderful. And Marion in the film is not like her at all. So he actually was trying to prepare her as this movie came out to understand that's a not a real depiction. It's not accurate, but it's really interesting watching Kevin Hart bring serious tears and bring some serious acting to this, and still have his typical Kevin Hart. Although it is PG-13, it's not crude and raunchy, and it just plays the story out, and it shows how he goes from being this dad that just can't do this to he gets to a point where Maddie has grown up a little bit, and he's really struggling. He's being promoted in his job, and his mother-in-law is still pushing him. And at one point, he decides to let Maddie go stay with her maternal grandparents, and he tries to live his life and his career. He tries to be unselfish, and he just decides he can't do it. And it's interesting watching the emotions that Kevin Hart displays. And as a father, I can understand and I can relate to that. I haven't had to go through anything at all like what he's going through there. But he does an absolutely incredible job. I was really impressed by the depth to which Kevin Hart could go. I don't want to give too much about this movie away. I mean, you can go look up interviews with the actual guy and read about the actual family. One of the story arcs towards the end of the movie is his friends hook him up with a woman who actually has the same name as his former wife. And a lot of that was constructed for the movie for dramatic effect. It's not exactly true to life. But even then, he's having to deal with this new relationship that this woman he's attracted to. And how is he going to bring this woman into his daughter's life who doesn't have a mother? And how's he going to make all this work? And the story, I think, is very well written. I think it's well casted. It's an incredible cast. They all do a wonderful job. The little girl that plays Maddie is absolutely adorable, the older one. And once again, without giving anything away, because I really think this is a movie that is worth watching. If you have Netflix, you can go watch it. But the movie is funny, which is what you expect from a stand-up comedian like Kevin Hart. But at the same time, it's heartbreaking. It deals with some gut-wrenching issues. A man losing his wife suddenly, being left with a child to raise by himself, family and friends not exactly understanding how to help him, and just dealing with all the other things that being a parent brings about, but having to do it all alone. But it's also inspiring to see this man taking responsibility and doing his best to be a good dad, to raise this girl to the best of his ability, and to put her first, because so often it's difficult to do that. And it's not a perfect movie. There are moments where it feels a little forced. There are moments where it's kind of ham-fisted, for lack of a better word. But overall, it's a very sincere, it's a very authentic movie. Whether you're a parent or not, whether you've experienced this kind of loss or not, there's something there that can speak to you. Whether it's the humor, finding humor in dark situations, or the way it deals with struggling with these things that we go through, the loss of someone and the pain and dealing with all that, how your friends and families deal with you. But the inspiration that he overcomes, that he and Maddie overcome all of these things that were going against him. And like I said, if you have Netflix, this is definitely worth your time to watch. I've never really come up with a great rating system, but if I was going to do A, B, C, D, F, I definitely put this one as an A. I don't know that it's an A plus because it's not a perfect movie, but it's a solid A. This is a very entertaining film in spite of the subject matter, and it's a very inspiring film. And if all you know from Kevin Hart is his silliness and his stand-up, I think you may come away from this film with a deep appreciation for the fact that this guy can really act. So there's my thoughts on Fatherhood. If you've seen it, let me know what you thought down below. As always, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I'm Lee, and I'm done.